These days, everyone is thinking about a safe way to invest and get rich. Have you ever thought how things that seemed like profitable ventures 100 years ago have become worthless today because of technology changes and new industries emerging? In the past, spices, cotton, and oil were the big moneymakers. Now places like Silicon Valley and companies like Google and Microsoft, along with IT, AI, and those kind of things, are leading the way. Over the last 4,000 years, from the Stone Age, there have been jobs that created wealth in their own time. By looking at human history, we can see where we started in terms of economy, how we got here, and where the future is headed. In this part, we'll take a look at wealth creation from 4,000 years ago to the future. The Age of Olive Oil. Before the invention of money, the kings of olive oil ruled. During the Stone Age, tribes would trade flints because it was useful for making sturdy and sharp tools and weapons, so everyone wanted it. But it didn't take long before sharp stone industry was replaced by agriculture. Humans shifted from being hunters to farmers, and that was the first industrial revolution in human history. In no time, villages turned into civilizations. Gradually, fruits, vegetables, and domesticated animals became the best commodities. People were spread across the earth, but the key to success was having something that wasn't available in your own region. As early societies and cities formed, the desire for strange and luxurious things also began. Early humans might have made shell necklaces to show off, but the 1st to 5th centuries AD, your status depended on spices, silk, and of course, olive oil. By the standards of ancient times, owning an olive grove was like having bought bitcoins 10 years ago and now having a ton of it in your account. With rising demand, the Silk Road trade route was established and the Mediterranean Sea became the ancient world's commercial highway. Iran, China, India, Arabia, Africa, and Europe weren't just trading goods, they were also exchanging art, fashion, and music with their coins. Alongside this cultural exchange, ideas about accounting, finance, and trade were passed along as well. When we look at the most profitable trades in history, we realize that the first economic giant was the agriculture industry. Aggressive expansion. Land is more than just a piece of dirt. Land is real estate. As soon as people realized they could gain more by stealing from their neighbors, feudalism became the new way of life. This system divided political power among large landowners, so the race to expand territories, or in other words, to grow their estates, became more intense. They tried to make allies along the way. Trading spices and silk was great for making friends, but it didn't help much when it came to defeating enemies. That's when the craftsmen entered the scene. Anyone who could forge a sword or make a chair became more valuable than the farmers toiling away in the fields. The value shifted from what you could find or grow to what you could make. This was the real start of industry. The economy moved towards self-sufficiency, and self-sufficiency became the main focus. Local production met local needs. Why you should buy expensive vegetables along the Silk Road when the peasants could grow something just as good? The luxuries of the past turned into everyday necessities. Now the main moneymakers were weavers, carpenters, butchers, and potters. These were the richest people until they had to start paying taxes. The money flow. Now we arrive at the birth of the global market. The Silk Road transformed from a small family-run shop into a massive distribution hub like Amazon or eBay. Forget about farmers and craftsmen. Merchants were now the owners of big businesses. Thanks to booming trade, the rich were now indulging in exotic items like pepper, cinnamon, and clove. The old spice routes had become streets full of wealth, art, music, and even wars. Everything was better than before. It was a time of luxury and grandeur. Luxurious silk fabrics were being imported from Asia, sometimes even more valuable than gold. Mines in Africa discovered loads of precious stones and metals, which gave rise to coin minting and the jewelry trade. Wealth in the new lands. As the 17th century approached, trade had become commonplace. Exotic spices, luxurious fabrics, and expensive jewelry were no longer that rare, but change was on the horizon. Now it was time for advancements in shipbuilding, which sparked the age of exploration. This meant new lands to discover, new goods to find, and new wealth to be gained. Gold and silver from these new lands flowed into Europe, boosting its economy. In some places, spices like nutmeg still symbolized wealth, but if you really wanted to show off your riches, you had to own sugarcane. No longer did the colonies of England, France, and Spain have to rely on Southeast Asian trades for sugarcane. They learned how to cultivate it themselves. But everything still had to be done through ships, making shipbuilding the key industry of the era. Just as horseshoes once proved that craftsmen were the backbone of the economy, trade was now dependent on shipbuilding. Huge sailboats became symbols of power, showing that craftsmen were back in business. Merchants, now loaded with money, were placing big orders with carpenters to build fancy ships with large storage spaces. The age of railroads and factories. The next big economic shift was the railroad. Steam trains were doing their job perfectly, making trade routes bigger, better, and faster than ever before. This was a transformative era. Now, products from the Silk Road and the new lands could be transported much more quickly. Factories multiplied and mass production became the norm. This period was dominated by cotton weaving in the textile industry. As factories grew, they needed coal for building and for using metal, while gold and diamonds were still important for the wealthy. If you really wanted to talk about true wealth in this era, it was all about coal. Use of labor boomed. Wealth was no longer about what you could do with your own hands, but what you could do with the hands of others. And the next phase of economy was all about what you could do with other people's money. The engine-based economy. With the expansion of Industrial Revolution, the demand for steel to build cities grew rapidly. Construction became a way to make serious money, which also created opportunities for bankers to cash in. Bankers have been around since the days when a caveman promised someone a nice profit in exchange for shiny stones. But after World War I, the booming 1920s arrived. Now you didn't need to toil in a farm or factory to create something valuable. All you needed was a piece of paper that said stock. The 1920s meant that ordinary people could now have something called disposable income. Economic power wasn't in what you sold anymore, but in what you could buy. We are talking about real estate, fashion, technology, and even stock investments. These things were no longer in the hands of the elite. Now, farmers and craftsmen had the power to shape society because it was the consumer dollars that dictated the market. The spending of everyday people decided whether the gramophone was a passing trend or the next big thing. Things kept improving until the end of World War II. Steel was still needed to build structures, but now it was also required for bullets and warplanes. However, the big new industry wasn't going to be in stocks or resources forever. When people weren't fighting, they were sought entertainment. This is when cinema became a gold mine and the gramophone records were broadcast through a new thing called radio. These brought in loads of cash, and then came television, ready to sell ad space to producers. In the blink of an eye, the manufacturing legacy of the Industrial Revolution shifted from the needs of market leaders to the desires of ordinary consumers, and they wanted the best of everything. Consumers wanted washing machines, not silk, and alongside this path, a new era was born. Now it was the age of plastic. The black trade. As the Industrial Revolution ended, economic power shifted toward oil. After World War II, more highways were built, more railroads were dismantled, and massive trucks delivered goods across continents faster than ever. Airplanes made whatever was left of Silk Road obsolete and simultaneously turned tourism into a key part of every country's gross national income. Spacecraft joined the mix during the space race and the Cold War. By this time, it was hard to find a consumer product that didn't involve plastic. Even chocolate was wrapped in plastic. During this era, as IBM, Microsoft, and Apple drove up demand for semiconductors, silicon became one of the most sought-after materials. The rise of personal computers paved the way for a more digital society. Now, specialized work like office jobs became high-paying and stable careers. Agriculture and construction were no longer the hot industries. Advertising and business management were booming on the stock market. But without a doubt, the latest major industry to emerge was drugs. Drugs and the illegal trade surrounding them had always existed, more or less, but cocaine, weed, and heroin didn't become billion-dollar industries until the late 19th century. Alongside these, pharmacies and healthcare companies could also make you rich. Money and the future. Even though everyone says something nowadays, some say pollution and global warming are happening, others say it's a lie, some claim oil is running out, while others argue it's just advertising. What matters is that energy will undoubtedly be the biggest industry in the future. Think about it. It doesn't matter what happens with computers, Bitcoin, or artificial intelligence. Sure, AI is going to be a massive and easy industry soon. All of these rely on computers, but none of them run on coal. Even if the auto industry is moving towards electric vehicles and the entertainment industry is focusing on digitalization, space tourism still needs fuel. Space tourism might seem like an unattainable dream, but with the pace technology is advancing, the person who manages to build a room or hotel on the moon will be the world's first trillionaire. And that's just the consumer side. Companies are already preparing to mine asteroids, so maybe the next big resource is something that hasn't even been discovered yet. Wherever there is infrastructure, there is business. If AI continues to advance at this rate, the next big industry and money-making power will be employing AI to get your work done and make money from it. So the next big money-making industry has gone from having an olive farm in the Stone Age to having a computer with AI. What do you think about the future of wealth creation? Please leave your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel.